Hey there, I got a super cool one for you guys today. I had the pleasure of visiting with Elliot Seldner of Fair Share Farm, and he runs the farm with his wife Emma, and they're just outside of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. A lot of the reasons why they're being so successful is that they have a lot of good efficiencies and systems in place, their ability to grow really high quality produce, and their proximity to market. They're only about 15 minutes from Winston-Salem, and that gives them access to a lot of really good restaurants and a couple of really strong farmers markets. So it's giving them the ability to move a lot of their produce. They grow a lot of lettuce, salad greens, some herbs, a lot of microgreens, and then a good amount of seasonal crops between brassicas and root vegetables and stuff like that. Elliot's also a big fan of hoop houses, and so they have a lot of hoop houses on their farm, and that allows them to grow lettuce year-round, gives them protection in the summer and also in the winter. So there's a lot about that in this one, and a lot of other cool stuff. So, hope you enjoy.
Josh, thanks for having me. My name's Elliot Seldner. I own and operate Fair Share Farm with my wife Emma Hendel. This is our nursery greenhouse where we grow transplants and microgreens. It's the beginning of everything for our farm. We started the business in 2014 with the idea of being a CSA. Things have changed. We now market mostly to restaurants and to 2 farmers markets. We grow year-round. Lettuce has close to 52 weeks availability as we can every year. Microgreens every week, and then seasonal produce to flesh out our growing season. So welcome to High Tunnel 1. This is our Garnish High Tunnel. It's a mixed use space where we're doing some microgreens, but mostly hand-picked garnishes and edible flowers. We've got nice short beds, lets us keep a lot of variety in rotation. That's a customer service thing from our perspective because a little bit of a lot is often needed to keep chefs feeling creative and inspired. That's part of the product that we sell. We're selling a palette from this space to let our customers better articulate themselves on the plate.
Cool. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful in here, Elliot, and I just love all the variety. And this seems like such a fun place for you guys to work too. It's almost like smaller scale gardening, you know, with the shorter beds.
Yeah, it is fun to work in, and it's also really enjoyable to spend time not working in here too. So definitely has a very valuable secondary benefit in that regard.
Very cool.
High Tunnel 2. Summer tomatoes for the past 2 years and mixed use in the off season. This space hasn't been tilled with a rototiller or mechanically in several years. Frequent broad forks, well, not even frequent, maybe once or twice a year depending. And then limited action on top with the tilter and bed rakes. So very simple. One of our more fertile spaces on the farm, always giving us high quality beets, which is not a given everywhere, and certainly able to support a variety, beet family next to brassica, and supporting pretty solid tomato growth as well. So we're happy in here generally. This space is a shining example of what having cover and control can do for you in certain climates. Just not having this space beaten by the sun, beaten by the rain, has saved us a lot of work because all the fertility and effort that has gone into improving the space has stayed fairly stable for us.
I know in our climate, I talk about that a lot, is the rain can be brutal when we get those quick storms.
And I think that's probably true for everybody, so that would be certainly a factor to consider if you're going to be doing very small vegetable production for profit. Having more covered space than not in the face of climate change is probably a prudent thing to do, or at least consider.
Yeah, and you have a lot of other tunnels we'll take a look at in a second.
Yeah, and that's definitely practice of that theory for sure. This is a field we call Field 2. It's our plot that's furthest away from the center of our farm, and it's our lower value field because it has a generally north-facing aspect. And so productivity based on sunlight tends to decrease this time of year the further we roll down the field. So with that being the case, we generally like to fill up this field from the bottom up to capitalize on sunlight. Here we're standing in the middle of our second kale patch planting. This whole patch, let's see, I don't know. We've started picking this patch. We've been inching our way in, so I'm standing in a section that not yet has been touched. We've already had 3 harvests from this block, inching our way in. We've sold, I don't know, roughly 150 bunches yet so far, and I would stand to think that we'd have another 150, if not 200 to 300 bunches left to pick until this crop is done sometime in the winter or into next year. Doing really well. We have a few varieties that we've settled on. We always like growing a green curly kale because they're generally rock solid and will continue to give us good quality eating well into the winter time. This one's called Aran or Arun, depending on how you want to pronounce that. It's a new one to us, but really a beautiful sort of winter boar style. This one's called Medusa. Hard to find the seed right now, but we love it. You can see just how big a plant it is. That stem is strong, it's thick, it's a vigorous plant, and by the time we get to this plant, maybe a 2.5 bunch off of one plant by the time we do our first pick, which is great. And then up top we've got everybody's favorite lacinato kale. People love it. People who juice love it. It's the green that turns things really vivid green when you blend it. Variety there being Black Magic. Great variety. Doing really well.
So mostly brassicas in this field. I had some carrots over here too.
Pretty much. It looks like 8 blocks to brassicas, which puts us right about 50% brassicas in this field. It's a big struggle for us. Salad eaters like brassicas generally. If it's not lettuce, it's baby kale or arugula, and then kale or turnips, radish, whatever and beyond. A lot of those high value and easy to consume salad products are in the brassica family once you're stepping away from lettuce. And so yeah, as a result, this field represents that.
All right, so Elliot, we were talking a little bit beforehand that you don't do a 30-inch bed in these fields here. Can you talk a little bit about your spacing and sort of the reasons behind that?
Yes, so nothing against the 30-inch bed, and we've grown with them in the past. We're certainly coming from the market farmer tradition, no doubt about that, the Elliot Coleman tradition. But erosion on this slope is a major concern, and 30-inch beds, particularly not raised beds, and 30-inch, we're losing a ton of soil. So we've gone to a much bigger bed, 56-inch center, 44-inch top, which has actually given us per block more square footage to grow on. The second reason for a larger bed top is that we've always admired larger scale farms who give their vegetables more space. And yes, we grant that there's the theory of a rich fertile bed, things can be crammed in closely, but if you want like a big head of cabbage or a big head of radicchio, you still need to provide that plant space to fill in and get to the desired size. So we just know what we want to sell, and we feel passionate about selling that style product to our customer, so we go for a bigger bed, bigger product. And you can see how well the kale is performing on 3-row here. Over your shoulder there, Josh, is cauliflower, and some of the frames on our cauliflower are just massive, and by the time we come ready to harvest towards Thanksgiving, big bad boys, something to be proud of, put on a calendar, take a photo of. That's what we want to sell. We want something like that's going to feed people. That's cool.
It's a cool way of thinking about it, and just again, like, it always comes down to context and what's working for you. And I know you said another thing before which caught my attention was that the three beds you have here is also a certain width, so that you can cover this with a tunnel in the future too.
For sure. It just made sense for sticking with all the proven agricultural traditions, standardization, and that's probably across any business enterprise. Standardizing leads to crew efficiency, and that's customer service as far as I'm concerned. So to that point, we've chosen the 14-inch block width because we have a lot of caterpillar tunnels. We may want to spread them out in the future, and so we just wanted fields set up to be able to receive the infrastructure that we already owned. So this is just ready to go. Having the raised beds will be great because we're still farming on a slope, and water infiltration will always be an issue here. So yeah, perfect fit for tunnels, I'd say, and that was the intention behind that decision.
All right, so you mentioned in the other tunnel there the importance of having cover, and you guys have a lot of caterpillar tunnels.
Yes.
How many tunnels do you guys have here?
A half acre or 20 caterpillar tunnels, roughly 28,000 square feet.
Okay. And you had mentioned to me off camera before that you actually like the smaller tunnels for ROI.
Oh yeah, so without confusing ourselves, there's pros and cons.
Okay.
Pro being, I think everybody's familiar with Farmer's Friend and the product that they put out, highly affordable. I recommend for that reason. There are issues that come with the lower cost. They're inefficiently narrow to pull off certain things. You know, to pack it full of tomatoes. Wasn't my first choice for tomatoes, but we're actually finding a system for them that works really well. But we knew that if lettuce was going to be our primary tunnel enterprise, and it was going to be our major field produce revenue generator, that being able to guarantee our core customers lettuce on a schedule was a necessity for our business. So take that with having periodically cold and difficult parts of the winter, and through the summertime periodically incredible amounts of rainfall in short amount of time. That's the reality of climate change for everybody. We knew that, and we felt like for us to cover our space would really be able to help us better plan and lock in the ability to plant, cultivate, water, harvest on the schedule that we needed to supply our customers with lettuce. So it's really how I just ended that thought that was the motivation to put up tunnels. It just so happened that there was a product like this that was at 14 feet wide, and we could buy it at 100-foot lengths or whatever. It fit the need at the right cost. Now, frequently we will have people ask why so close together, X, Y, and Z, but we decided to exploit the best space we had on hand as thoroughly and as quickly as possible. So I've also mentioned that we are running a living and organic farm. The farm is an organism. It changes and develops. We happen to steer that development while balancing that against the climate, erosion, rain, wind, sun. This is a good hedge of our bet. We're also leaving ourselves open to change and move these tunnels as needed. So when we talked in field 2 about having 14-foot wide blocks, that leaves us flexibility to change and adapt the farm while still meet our production goals. We're definitely concerned about tunnels this tight. They have their benefits and their disadvantages. But in large part, this has been a net positive for us in a big way.
Cool, let's go check out one of your lettuce tunnels.
Let's look at some lettuce. This is a spring mix tunnel. You can see here that we grow a mixture of head lettuce, Salanova in particular, but any multi-leaf style lettuce would do for this type of culture, or non-multi-leaf depending on what your customers want. We grow 3 beds inside of here. 36-inch wide bed top seems good for us. We can fit 5 rows of baby head lettuce sized lettuce in. We can cultivate that generally 3 times quickly prior to canopy closure, and in the course of a season we can bring on a new space like this, follow that regimen, and have essentially a clean weeded tunnel in under a year, and go from sod to finished productive soil in about 12 months or so.
So how many crops per year does this tunnel get?
In a section that I budget for lettuce, I'm looking for 5 to 6 cropping opportunities. That's a lot. We may come down on that, but if you look, say, on a Johnny seed packet, for instance, most lettuce is going to be 50 to 55 days DTM. When we take that general number and divide 365 by it, you get like 6.5 opportunities. So in the past, we've had less space available than this, and where we were growing lettuce, we were looking to hit that 5 or 6 crop benchmark. If you do that under one of these tunnels, you've made money so long as you can sell those crops same year as you put plastic over the top of it. That was one of the core reasons why a simple structure from Farmer's Friend made sense for us. Keep in mind too, the choice was deliberate. We are growing a very low growing crop here as our primary cash crop in the field. We don't need the infrastructure to support tomatoes, etc. And when we do those crops in here, the space isn't worth it to do vertical trellising. It's way too much work. We just do T-posts, Florida weave style growing in here. Very low labor.
Okay, and this is all paper pot and drip?
That's true. There's a system. We start on overhead and finish with drip. But yeah, paper pot transplanted works. When things are working, it works great. Most of the time it's working well for us. Here you can see a fairly good stand. Some spottiness. We were having some potting soil and seed issues earlier in the season, and this is actually still us working through that. So that's kind of a neat note, that things that give you trouble in the nursery 3, 4, 5 months ago take the better part of a season to start playing out. So that's what we're seeing here too. Good looking crop. It's lettuce season, but a little bit.
We also had a lot. We also had a lot of heat, even a few weeks ago.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, that's right. 2 or 3 weeks ago, it was still in the 90s.
90s, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, this looks awesome.
I want to miss a chance to talk about this new field also. 10 of these caterpillar tunnels was very much like this time last year. This will not be a site for more tunnels at this point. This is just more space for us to rotate crops like brassica family crops to get a little bit longer space in between croppings but on any given bed. So here we rented a skid steer, did some grading. There was a berm that used to run in a crescent along the whole back of this field. This was an old dairy farm, so the goal of this property was to catch and divert animal waste and runoff into the tree line. There was a creek down there that used to run into. Now there's a high school in our backyard and a small produce farm in this field, so none of that infrastructure was necessary anymore. We got rid of that. We did some grading in the subsoil and then blended the topsoil with a large compost heap that we had made several years ago. Then that went back on top. And then, believe it or not, we hand dug all of these beds with shovels and built nice big fat raised beds. We spent a little bit of time stale bedding with power harrow and a little bit of hand weeding to remove some perennials. And then we sowed Austrian pea and winter wheat to hold the soil and give us some fertility going into 2020.
Okay, so when do you think you'll be putting cash crops in here?
Spring of 2020.
Okay.
So this is how we address cold storage on the farm. We started with a much smaller walk-in that we still use for dirty produce, but we found ourselves filling it to the brim and not being able to navigate it very well. Farming is materials handling at the end of the day. This lets us handle our materials a lot more easily, with less stress. This is a shipping container. It's an old reefer. It's a little bit rough, a little bit beat up, but good enough for our purposes. It's pre-insulated, so we got it used at a fairly good price, cleaned it out, and then retrofitted it using CoolBox, which most folks are familiar with. So I'll just show you it real quick on the inside. Yeah, so before I show you inside, the cold part of the refrigerator, we'll just address this wall. Obviously it's not something that came with the shipping container. This is a false wall that we added in later to achieve two things. It's a wall to hold the AC units that do the cooling for us, and it's technically a mobile wall because it's only tacked in with brackets and could be slid down the length to expand and contract with sails. It's not that easy to do, so it's something we wouldn't really want to move, but if and when we're ready, we can do that. The secondary benefit of hanging the AC units here, well, actually the primary benefit of hanging the AC units here, but secondary value of the wall itself was we weren't ready to refrigerate this whole space, so we're saving money. We're not running as many AC units as the square footage would require for us to cool 40 feet. But we also didn't have to make any permanent choices that we might regret. We didn't put any holes in the side of the insulated wall because we didn't know if we wanted to do that or if we might go to commercial refrigeration at some point. So when we're ready to expand, we can get commercial refrigeration sited externally at the shipping container, or if we want to stick with cool bots and cool the whole space, then we'll punch them through the wall and hang them out the outside. This gives us flexibility now so we don't have to worry about patching any holes later if we decide to do something different. So inside here, so it just looks like a walk-in here, nothing special per se, but the theme of standardization continues. Just like we grow with the same size beds or at least lengths and fairly equivalent things outside, we've got all the same totes, same lids, same location of lot. The only thing different we have in here is where we organize our edible flowers and we organize our packing materials. The space is large enough for us right now for us to do our packing inside the place where we do our cold storage, which is customer service. All of our product stays cold even while we're handling it.
So you can talk a little bit about the fact that this used to be a dairy farm and how you're utilizing some of the infrastructure that's here. I know we're standing in front of this building here, which you're now using as a wash pack.
Mm-hmm. When you're starting up a farm, you're looking for as many advantages that one package or another might offer you. We knew that location for us would be key. We were looking for spaces that might be ready to go for wash and pack. We were looking for how are we going to irrigate. We were looking for generally fertile land. The list goes on. This part of North Carolina, I think a lot of the South and Southeast in general is growing rapidly, and we find ourselves here as an urban or suburban farm, yet we are in the country but in the city at the same time. This used to be rural until very recently, and this farm, like many other farms in the area, were dairy farms. The building behind me is the old milking parlor. It's now our wash and pack. It was the logical setup. Concrete building is going to stay more temperature stable. Already had water in it, already happened to have a 3-basin stainless steel sink, lighting, core requirements for washing and packing vegetables. So I suppose if you were a vegetable farmer and looking for a farm, a dairy farm would not be a bad fit.
Well, thank you so much for showing me around today, and I'm super excited to have come to visit you guys and get to know you a little bit. But tell everyone here, how can people follow along what you guys are doing at Fair Share Farm, where you can find your produce, and anything else you want to share.
Sure, if you're local and you want to eat some of our produce, we do farmers markets and restaurants. So you can join us in Winston at Cobblestone Farmers Markets on Saturday mornings, or further south towards Charlotte in the town of Davidson, we do their farmers market, something like 8 to noon. And then restaurants, Winston, Greensboro, and Charlotte, many of the finer dining establishments were in there selling our produce and garnishes. As far as seeing us grow and keeping up with us online, fair_share_farm on Instagram is where we're doing that. Not so much on Facebook. And you could go to our website, which is fairsharefarm.net, shop on our online store to get fresh produce for pickup at markets or the farm, and you can also join our newsletter there to stay in touch that way.
Cool, I'll link all that below.
Thanks, man.